pen. Thank you. Good evening. I'll call this meeting of the Town of Thompson Planning and Zoning Commission Subcommittee on Regulation Rewrite to order. It is Tuesday, July 7th, 2020 at 7 o'clock p.m. We will begin with a roll call. Mr. Lenke.
John B. Lenke, present.
Good evening, everyone. It is now
Mr. Poplawski.
Dave
Poplawski, present.
Mr. Hill.
Alvin Hill, present.
Ms. DeRosiers.
Missy DeRosiers, present.
Mr. Werge.
Mr. Werge is present.
July 7th,
Mr.
2020.
Santos.
Brian Santos, present.
And Joseph Perotti Brown.
Are present.
Okay. Our next item is the discussion on proposed regulations. We have the Lake Overlay District, which Tira had sent the draft language for us. We don't have a discussion guide tonight because it's just that one topic, and it doesn't exist currently in our draft. This would be, I assume, Article 4G to go at the end of the districts section. And we have, so Tira had sent the Lake District proposed language and resent the maps of where these proposed districts would fall. We can see it's a pretty heavily restricted district in terms of uses. And so that's where our discussion is now.
Give me a second, Joe. Charlene's trying to come in. I've got to send her the link.
Sure thing.
Of course, it's like impossible to. There we go.
Assisted living or
Okay.
yeah.
All right, I'm with you. Yeah, so it's pretty simple. Just to cover where we left this, sort of at the 11th hour after having discarded the idea of the watershed overlay district, which is what was initially proposed. It did seem, I think, to the majority of the commission that the issues facing the properties around the two lakes, Little Pond and Quadic Lake, have sufficient challenges of their own that they did merit a separate treatment. And the main concern there was the idea of septic and well separations and what would satisfy NDDH while still allowing property owners of these little tiny lots to be able to use them in some way. And, there's some natural conflict in those two equally worthy goals. So I did finally, late on Thursday for the holiday weekend, get in touch with Maureen at NDDH. And it was not totally dissimilar to the conversation we had with Sue Starkey, although a little more topical. The stuff with the campers, she reiterated, what their limitations were, and that they would only come in, and, if there was a complaint about dumping. That's sort of a separate concern. The main problem with these properties is that they're so teeny tiny, many of them, that individually they will not support residential construction or any construction that would require septic and well. So as a compromise there, of course, we've loosened the ability to keep a camper if you own one of those properties. So you're not restricted to 14 days out of the calendar year as the current regulations, whether they intended it to be that way or not, literally state. There are still going to be a fair number of non-conforming properties that are going to be too small to build a permanent structure on. But if you have one that's even as small as what we're permitting in the common residential district, formerly known as R20, and NDDH will approve your design, you would be able to build there. That's essentially what Maureen and I agreed to. I had proposed that what we way back wanted to go to, which is there is no minimum lot size as long as it satisfies those parameters. But she pointed out that once you get below a certain size, there is no way to have safe separations. So she did suggest that it might be physically possible to achieve that, going down to a minimum allowable lot size of 4,500 square feet. So that is what I have plopped in here, essentially using lot size requirements from the common area in this district as a baseline, but they're still going to be highly limited in what they could actually build if they make a proposal.
Mr. Santos.
There's no structure to my questions here, but most of my stuff is around the dimensional requirements. I don't really have a problem with any of the chart information, the 1 through 11. I see a couple of them that are in yellow there, so I'm assuming we need to take some sort of action with that. But my question is more around the dimensional stuff. My first question is the lakeside. Does Marla have some sort of setback off of the lake side that we should follow? Because I see here it says rear setbacks no less than 1/6 of the lot's road frontage. But is there a requirement from Marla about how far people need to stay off the water's edge?
Carolyn, that's a good question for you, I think.
I could chime in on that. There's a 100-foot review from a wetland soil or a watercourse, there's a 100-foot review area, formerly called a setback or a buffer.
Yep.
But that does not forbid anything within the 100 feet. It just means if you're doing anything within 100 feet
Yep.
of wetland or watercourse, it has to be reviewed by wetlands because they're going to be very concerned about impact to the wetlands. So it may require special erosion and sedimentation controls. It may require a little change in the configuration of your site plan, but it's not really forbidding.
Okay.
And there's also a 200-foot review, upland review area for the 10 most noteworthy wetlands in town, but they are not here.
Okay. All right.
And those things, Carolyn, are covered under the wetlands regulations as a part of that commission's authority.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Do we happen to know how many of the properties, I appreciated that little map, and then I went on to the website, which I've been on before. How many properties do not have 50-foot frontage? It seemed like there is a significant amount of properties that do not have 50-foot frontage. Is that a true statement?
Just based on what I've seen in Marla's office, I think that is probably a true statement. Of course, once you get into parcels that already exist,
Yeah. I guess that's where I was going with is I don't know if there's any parcels that don't exist over there. I'm not sure unless people want to combine things or change things, but I'm not so sure. One thing that was striking me was, okay, if I have a 50-foot frontage and then another person has 100 feet, if you're doing the 1/6 thing and 50%, impermeable surface, it seems like to me the person that has 2 lots is going to be significantly restricted to build the same size house as the person with only 50 foot of frontage. And I'm not so sure that that's fair.
I'm not sure I follow your reasoning there, Brian. It seems to me Well, the reason that those fractional frontages exist, of course, is because this was intended for the other district where there are lots of smaller
Yeah.
properties, although not as small
I
as
know.
these. So if, even though we're stating that the minimum frontage is 50 feet, that is for the minimum frontage for lots that are either created or combined going forward, right?
Yeah.
So that's your baseline. But since there are a fair number of non-conforming lots that already exist that may meet some of these other characteristics that would allow them to build a small structure. You have to assume that a small lot is going to only have a small structure, but that would be a permanent one. This creates fewer non-conformities.
Yeah. I understand that. So if I did the math here and I have a 50-foot frontage and I take 1/6 of that, that is 8.33 feet. So are we saying that we could build a house 8.33 feet away from the road?
No, because yes, we are.
I think we are.
Yes, we are.
Yes.
I was misreading something for a second. Sorry.
And that also means that we're building 8.33 feet away from the water.
Theoretically, that is true.
Well,
But
one's a front yard setback and one's a rear yard setback.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're listed as the same currently.
Yeah, they're the same.
Right. So theoretically, yes, that is true. You could build one long, skinny structure that hit those minimum levels of setback.
Yeah, I guess
I would suggest that what is more likely is that you would only be hitting one of those short setbacks.
I guess my problem is, okay, that's at 50 feet. If a person had 100 feet, let's just say right next door, that person would have to be at, 16.5 feet from the road. I just don't know if I like that. I'd rather just have a set number and say it's 10 feet from the road and 10 feet from the water for any property size. I just feel like the person with the larger property is being hindered when the person with the smaller property is getting more option. And I just don't know if I like it. Let me ask a different question. What is going on right now? Is everyone that's submitting, like there's all kinds of houses being built on Quantic right now. What happens? Are they all applying for variances? What is the process?
Thank you.
Cindy, that one's for you, I think.
You have to validate it?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, we don't have, I can't recall variances for houses. For sheds, we've had a few, but
Well, all I can
they've
say is,
managed to stay within, the houses that are being built. And this is while I've been there. It's, non-conforming the frontage, so.
so like there's a guy that's on Brandy Hill Road. He just got finished building his house. He moved in there. They own the CrossFit place in Putnam. And I mean, they're probably like, they're very close to the side property line. I just want to know what the process was for them to build that. There's also another very large house going on Brandy Hill Road right now that I don't know how they're building that house with the setbacks.
Is that Brandy Hill Road or Wrightson Drive?
It's Wrightson Drive off
Right.
of Brandy Hill.
I
Yeah.
know which one you're talking about. Now, obviously, I'm not sure if that one came in when I was there. But obviously, I get the plans, I look at the dimensions, and if they meet the setbacks, it's good to go for my department.
Yeah. I just don't see how they could meet the setbacks that are in the, actually they are not, in from what I can tell. I'm not taking a swing at you, Cindy. I just don't think that they are. And maybe that was, like you said, approved before your time. But,
Yeah, I can go upstairs and double check.
yeah.
Because I know the two houses you're talking about.
Yeah.
Is it a new house or is it?
Yeah, both of them are brand new.
Uh-huh.
Brand new, Carolyn. Yeah.
Well, wasn't one of them camp and they? No, I think the one you're talking about, the guy that owns the CrossFit, that was a camp and he turned it into a house because he had before pictures and after, and it looks like he put like an addition on or something.
Well,
You can go 25% from the original footprint as long as you meet your setbacks.
yeah, it's a brand new house, Charlene. I saw it right to the ground, right to the ground.
I think you're seeing the addition. No, could they
No,
have taken the camp out? Because I know the parents, and I think he owned a camp, like a cottage there.
Yeah, there was a house there before, but that was
Oh, okay.
completely demolished. There's
All right.
a brand new house there, brand new.
Yep.
Well, anyway, that's besides the point. I just wanted to understand what the current process is. Does somebody come down? Because I don't see how.
Brian.
Yeah.
Brian, I'm actually starting the process right now.
Yep.
So building permit application, zoning permit application, NDDHB 100 application, and a wetlands application.
Yep.
But you, Dave, you obviously have a property that is large enough to support this construction. Did you have to seek a variance? I mean, your perspective here as somebody who has property in what will become this district is important because, Cindy's perspective is I want to know what challenges we face that we're trying to address, which is the conversation I had with her, right before I had the conversation with Maureen. And then from the perspective of somebody who is dealing with it, that is important too.
Yeah, so I have a 1 acre lot, full 1 acre. So, I fall not in the 50, what Brian was talking about, the 50-foot, a 10-foot. I know on the maps, when you look at Little Pond, you look at all those little cut up pieces of land and, there's people who own 10 of those parcels. So it's kind of deceiving when you look at that. There's people who own a little slice of that on what would be the east side of Little Pond. But again, my lot is 1 acre lot. So I have plenty of room to do what I need to do. I actually am renewing it. I had a valid NDDH zoning and a building permit that I let expire because I didn't have time to build. So, but I'm in the process of renewing them.
So somebody remind me, is 1 acre or less or something like that doesn't, fall into the 25 front setback and the 50 side or rear front, whatever we have right now? It's like it's impossible to build anything. That's kind of the point of my question is right now if you laid everything out, you can't build a house, you can't build anything, right? So is it 1 acre under and something else happens that I'm not familiar with right now? Sorry for the dumb question.
Are you talking
No,
about?
it's a good point.
Oh, I was going to say, are you talking about the lake area or are you? Okay.
Yeah, I'm still on the lake area. Yeah.
And Brian, I had 2 cottages that got torn down, so it might have played into that existing structure, build a new structure.
Yeah. Yeah.
My
So
concern.
just to go to the 1/6 front and rear setbacks of the lot's road frontage, it does say 1/6 or 35 feet, whichever is less.
Yeah.
So at no point does the 1/6 ever get to the point where it would.
Yeah.
Like if you've got so much frontage that 1/6 becomes ridiculous, then the other kicks in.
Sure. I don't think you'll ever get the 35 feet.
You see, I know we're having an extensive discussion on this issue, but most of the lots on Little Pond especially, it's difficult to meet the NDDH requirements of the 75-foot circle from well to septic.
Yeah.
And there's not sewers there, so you have to deal with that.
Yeah.
So a good portion of these lots are not buildable just from the point of view of the NDDH.
Yeah. I guess what
That is correct, and a number of them will remain unbuildable.
Right.
This gives more options for people who have a slightly larger parcel, and it also does give those who own multiple parcels, and we've had a couple of those calls recently, the
Combined.
opportunity to combine.
Sure.
And what I was just thinking might be a wise addition to this is an item that says, and there is a similar statement earlier where we discuss non-conforming lots, that owners of contiguous parcels are encouraged to combine to make the lots less conforming. It might be worth restating that specifically in this district.
Yes, but are you going to make it a mandate, or are you going to say we're just encouraging it?
I believe we actually have the authority to do either. But the way some of these properties are used, it may not be completely beneficial for us to mandate it. In other words, if I have a couple of parcels and all I really want to do is put a camper on it, and I want to be able to sell them separately to somebody else who might want to put a camper on it, I think that's probably okay. But we could make the other choice. There is the authority to do that.
Well, it could be contingent on if you are building a residence, then you would mandate it.
Although you might not have to mandate it, because if you want to build a residence, no matter how far down we've busted this, if the lot itself isn't of those dimensions, you still can't build. So I don't know, your residential lot can't be more than one parcel, can it? It's like a reverse subdivision almost.
Well, it doesn't make sense to state the size of the parcel so tiny that you can't build on it, and then you have all these other ramifications. You know, 4,500 square feet is, 1/10 of an acre. It doesn't look good.
Yeah, I would agree. I agree with Carol.
It's like, it opens a Pandora's box in some ways. I mean, I understand your point, Tara, but, in order to allow for every contingency that somebody might want, you don't want to throw the baby out with the bathwater.
Yeah, no, I agree. We can adjust any of these things. It was suggested to me by Maureen that minimum lot size may conceivably be buildable. Obviously, that's not going to be buildable under every circumstance either. The other dimensions of the lot would have to support it. The system used would have to be one that, would accommodate for the size of the lot or the size of the structure being built. But we can adjust any of this. That's what this whole evening is for, because this is being added back in cold.
Well, in my opinion, I this kind of segueing off what Carolyn just said and what Bob was talking about, as long as NDDH standards for septic and potable water are met, do we need to say and not less than 4,500 square feet? Is that something we need to say? Because they might approve it as something less than that.
You think of 50-foot frontage. It's kind of difficult if you have two lots side by side. They both have 50-foot frontage. For both of them to get a septic and a well in with it less than 75 feet of each other. Of course, if they're really deep, you probably could. But these lots aren't like that over there. They're just patchworks.
But that would be up to the District of Health.
Yes.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying why we should just tell, if the District of Health approves it, I feel like we should move on to the next step and not say less than 4,500 square feet.
I
So
agree.
you're suggesting we go back to that earlier, no minimum at all.
Yeah,
They just have to prove to NDDH that it can be done.
that is
I'm
correct.
fine with that idea.
Yeah, I feel like that's the right thing to do, in my opinion.
As long as it doesn't impose on the neighbor, though. The
Yeah, we'll
neighbor
get to
can
that.
buy.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, because
Yeah.
are you talking about the house or where the septic or well? 'Cause I'm assuming that NDDH would make that determination at that time, that they're not imposing on the neighbor.
Well, here's the thing. If it's a lot that has development on both sides, and it's a tiny lot, then they're confined to that 75-foot distance
Yep,
based on where the septic and well is on the lots
Adjoining
beside
lots.
them.
the pre-established lots.
Let's
Yeah, got it.
assume for a moment those two lots aren't developed, and you only own this 50 by 90 lot, 1/10 of an acre. Now, wherever you put your septic and well, you are going to be taking away from the ability of the two abutting lots
Yeah,
to cite whatever they need to cite.
sure.
That's what I mean about creating, new problems with this. Hopefully, we're
Yeah.
not going to.
Well, and that's why I want to get rid of the 4,500 square feet, because, well, maybe they can put it somewhere else that works. I don't know. I don't want to create yet another issue, right? I feel like we should just strike that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm okay with that. I mean, how does the rest of the commission feel about that? Is Cindy, Alvin, Joe,
Yeah, I disagree with that.
Okay.
and what is the nature of your disagreement, Cindy?
Because I think you need to have a minimum size. Yeah, that's, you're gonna get crowded.
Not if
No,
you-
well, on 4,500 square feet, there's not much room anyway.
Yeah,
Right, but-
that was kind of my point is if it's that small, it's crowded to begin with, right?
Right.
Well, you're gonna get intense crowd.
If I
I'll use that
may,
word.
Mr. Krovo?
I go back to pre-zoning in the sense that when you have all these
Mike, you're clipping out. You may have to.
He went to sleep. I think he just fell asleep right there.
I always believed that.
Mike, I find that when you have trouble
Man,
setting up
so
like
if it's
that,
a
if you turn off your
2,500 lot,
video and
square
go
foot
to your
lot,
phone.
4,500. Oh, that's an issue there. Is this any better?
Try it again,
Okay,
Mike.
How about now? You hear
Yeah,
me?
go ahead, Mike. Start again.
Okay, all these non-conforming lots are in existence because zoning did not exist at the time. You should
Correct.
be able to do whatever you want on that lot as long as you meet, I don't even say you meet, as long as you can fit a septic system onto it. That is my opinion. There was not zoning at the time these lots were developed or made. And people got along with it at the time. So just, I say go with it now. If you can get a house onto it, it helps the person that owns the property. If they can only fit a camper onto it, that's great too.
Yeah.
I mean, the burden is kind of on a listing broker, right, who's selling these properties to describe what the potential issue is. So in the situation that Carolyn describes, where let's say there's 3 contiguous lots, let's say that the person in the middle is the lucky duck who comes in and builds. Okay, so that may in fact infringe upon one or both of the other 2 lots' ability to build structures. Unless those deals are going on simultaneously, then the remaining lots the conditions on the ground. And a responsible broker would only be able to sell that under the conditions of, look, this is not a buildable parcel, but you can have a camper here. These are the regulations of camp. That's my feeling about that. So the potential conflict is if there are two deals going on two contiguous lots simultaneously, one of them makes it under the wire, and that would in fact be something of a pickle if both of those purchasers were intending to build permanent residential structures there. I don't know that we can solve every problem, but that is something that you would have to legitimately acknowledge is a problem that could occur.
It
So
could.
if
As a,
we-
go ahead.
And are you taking development rights away from the other lot owner in granting a building permit? And there's
Well,
Well,
that-
under the current
well, I'm
regime, they
wrong.
kind of have no rights at all, right? The only thing you can do there is
Well,
plunk a
let's say
camper
these
on it.
lots- Let's say these lots are 50 by 100. If you can fit a septic system onto one of them, you should be able to fit a septic system onto both of them, meeting all the requirements of the setbacks. Because you have to stay so far away from the boundary line to start with. So the next lot, you would also stay so many feet off the boundary line. If they're the same size lots and everything else, like 50 by 100. Your setbacks should be the same on both.
Go ahead, Joe.
And even if it had the lot, like say there's 3 pieces of property, whether the first builds on it or the third builds on it, the property is still the owner's property. NDHD has to come down and decide what can happen on that property, right?
Exactly.
Correct.
I agree.
Correct.
I agree. Yeah, absolutely.
And as time goes on, you're going to get better and better septic systems also.
Yeah,
That's true.
I agree with Mike. I feel like those people should be allowed to build on it. I don't know if the word anything they want is appropriate, but within some sort of limitation, right? So
I'm just saying those lots existed prior to zoning.
Yeah, got
and
it.
you're taking something away from them.
I got it. I completely agree.
Yeah, absolutely.
My only argument for the minimum, and I'm not sure it's a convincing one, would be consistency with other districts.
I agree
Well,
with
this
that,
district-
Joe.
This district is very different. It's not like any other district. And so if you choose to live in a district that this works for, then that's the district that you're in. If I want to go to my cottage and I get a chance to build there, then that district is very different because of the lot size. And so now all of a sudden they're working with me to help me accomplish that instead of
If
being-
you're allowing 45 square feet on the common district, that's pretty small. So the lake area would not be uncommon, because then all of a sudden you're going to see these 45 square feet minimums pop up in the common district. So it's not so if they have to do 45, I feel that I go along with Joe. You've set a standard in each district for that. I think you should keep that consistency in setting a standard.
Well, let's change it in all the other districts then.
We tried that, if you'll recall, and we were strongly advised against it by several people, including the building office, the assessor, our own town council. But in this district, I think you could make a strong argument that it would be appropriate to remove that minimum based on the unique characteristics of the parcels as they exist. And
Right,
again,
so
I'm not
kinda
saying
like
we
a-
should do one or the other. I'm saying that the argument is a good and rational one.
Like a grandfather, how about if the lots were there prior to, like Mr. Mike Krogel was saying, then that's like a grandfather, and so that's where that would happen. If it's something new and they're making new lots out of some land, can we have a separate, like something that's different than the grandfathered
The
Can we just-
pre-existing will be grandfathered.
Yeah, that's new. Do we
It's a
maybe-
building lot.
That's automatically. No.
do we just add the word new, the minimum new lot area for development in number 1? Is that, I don't know if that's appropriate or not, but
Let me think that through here.
You know, the 4,500 square feet in the common area was based on the fact that there are sewers.
sewers, yeah. Yeah.
Let's not forget.
There are sewers and there are existing lots around that same size. Yeah,
Yes.
so it
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. it's
But with that,
called-
that limited size, someone who has large acreage, some acreage out in the common area, you can create many, many lots now with that.
Yeah.
that is correct.
And if that's what you want in an already dense area, then go for it.
And as for the adjoining lots, I think that should be up to the owner to decide if he should want to combine them or not. I mean, common sense tells you if you want to put a house, you may want to have more area in which to
Sure.
do it.
Sure.
But you don't need to. I mean, like you said, if you want to sell 2 camp lots instead, that's up to them.
4,500 square feet is pretty small.
Yes, it is. But people.
It's the size of my living room.
No.
Well, that's
Well, that's an
fortunate for you.
unusually large living room, Bob.
Yeah.
That's a nice living room, Bob. Wow.
Must be nice.
50 by 90.
Does it echo? Anyways, I mean,
Oh,
You guys didn't know that the Wurges actually live in a reproduction of Versailles.
I think we could have enough room to hold our meetings in the Wurges living room then. Socially
There you
distanced.
go.
At the 6-foot distancing, yes.
With
6
hors
foot
d'oeuvres.
distancing.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lenke,
I've been listening to everybody, and my perspective on that is with putting in a septic. When you put in a septic system, even though it has to conform with the NDDH and all that because of the lot size and stuff, but you're also forgetting that we got the 75 from the well to the center of this to the septic tank, but your leach field, just because you might only have to have, they say, okay, if it's a 2-bedroom cottage or a 2-bedroom house, everybody forgets that back in the day, they would just use as cottages during the summer. So it gave the ground with the septic systems that they put in a chance to disperse stuff better. Here, if you're going to have them all together and they're going to live there all the time, your ground's going to get saturated over time. And that's where the problem comes in. That's why they want certain size land. So at least when your leach field does filter out, which it's supposed to, what it's designed, it's just not that area. It leaches past that. It could go another 50 feet or whatever before it starts participating in the ground. So if you want to make small lots and do that, you're going to have problems down the road, at least within 10 years minimum. That's my point.
But that's
From where-
the jurisdiction of NDDH. When somebody comes with a building plan to say, I want to build this year-round residence,
Right.
this is my lot size, will you sign off? That is totally within the health department's authority to say, sorry, no dice. Look at this lovely RV you could have instead. You know?
Well, I'm just looking back from my time. So I remember the late majority of the people that I
Sure, people, yeah.
houses on that were cottages. Then they converted them over time, and you didn't have them one on top of each other. And then there's a lot of places down here in the lake. I can tell you, I remember their systems were failing left and right, and they were scrambling. So if you want to add more, knock yourself out. But I just
Well, I don't think we do want to add more. I think we're just acknowledging that they are there and people own them and want to use them. And what is the accommodation
just
that
stick
we
with,
can make
just stick
that
with
is
the.
reasonable?
If they want to put like a camper over there and be there from April till December, whatever you want to call it, like a camp thing, that's fine. If they want to put in a septic system because you don't have a building, the unit, now you got the land to accommodate a septic system because you don't have a structure in the ground. The structure in the ground takes away from what your septic system needs to do to be functional.
That could be an option also, yes.
You know,
Yeah,
this
and,
way-
and I'm sure most people would not want to pay for one of these engineered systems right now either. So that would also be a thought for them to process before they go any further. You know, engineered systems are not cheap.
I'm going to-
Chairman, can I address John and Mike?
Mr. Hill, yes.
When I was building official, there was several lots on the lake that have holding tanks, John, which means
Yeah.
they're pumped annually,
Yes.
don't need a leach field.
They're not legal now, Alvin.
What?
I don't think they're legal now.
Yes, they are.
Good they are.
I'm not sure.
Well, maybe Maureen could answer that, but I'm quite sure
I know
that
that's true.
they're all right. I mean, why are they now illegal if they already have several around the lake?
If they're going to be replaced and they have to do
Existing.
a system in a
Yeah.
acceptable
grandfathered
system,
existing.
Well,
engineered system.
I'm not going to, Jim, and I'm not going to disagree with Mr. Hill, it's correct. But the new holding tanks that they put now, much more efficient for what they do. They got grinders and whatnot. And they can come in and pump them out in a couple, 3 months, not once a month. But it eliminates the stuff being dispersed in the ground. So that's, you can still have a well, you got a holding tank, get it pumped, you can have the well and do what you want.
Can I say something, Joe?
John, yeah.
Okay, so I wholly support it, looking to see what we could do to create some building lots for people who own them and want to be up at the lake. But if you take away the 4,500 minimum square foot, then the health department comes in and says, oh no, you still can't do this. Are we getting their hopes up? You know, we say, oh good, they freed up the lake, we can go and build. And then all of a sudden, the health department comes in and says, no, you can't build. So if you give them that, if you say no required square foot, you know, at least kind of make kind of a minimum square foot.
Yeah, I mean, I think that is also strong reasoning. I mean, I think both of these arguments have, both of these thoughts have strong reasoning behind them. There is something appealing to me about the idea around these lakefront properties of saying, if it's a permanent structure, it must be at least this big. And that's more because of the concern about the sensitivity of the water asset to me than it is about the concern with neighbors per se, because, you know, you're going back to buyer beware.
Yeah, and I agree with you on that, Tara.
Okay, I'll strike my previous. I'll leave it in there for keeping it consistent. I'm fine with that now. I've been convinced with Cindy's, and I agree with John Lanky as well about the leach field aspect. Even though we're not controlling that, that's still NDDH, but I can understand the point. So.
Mike,
So are we good? Are we good with 4,500 square feet as the minimum lot size in general? Does that seem consensus? Do we want to vote on that?
That's what I was
What
just
does that
gonna-
have to do with the existing lots then?
They're grandfathered.
They're still grandfathered.
Okay. long as-
But here's a like, so we say the lots are grandfathered.
Yeah,
If I haven't built on a lot
yeah.
Right.
and the minimum is you know, and then I can't build on it right?
That's-
But you can't build on it now.
So making it more permissive now, correct?
Okay. Okay.
Correct. It's more permissive now, but not everybody gets permission.
Great. Okay.
Right.
Thank you. That was bracing and clarifying. Mike, so you were I know, Mike, it seemed like you were advocating strongly for no minimum.
I'm not advocating for no minimum. I'm saying the lots that are there that the people bought should be grandfathered in. And if they wish to build and they meet the septic requirements, they should be able to, regardless of what size it is.
I think the law provides for that now because any lot that existed prior to
Right.
planning is a lot of record.
Right.
If you can satisfy the health department, you can build on that lot.
Just want to make sure that's known. Okay, yes, I
It
agree
already
with you on that.
exists in the law.
Yes.
So in other words, Carolyn, we do not need to articulate that because that is something outside our authority and is the convention of.
Yes.
Yes, exactly.
Can I just add, I still think we should add the word minimum new lot area because that's is very specific on, that's a new lot and not a pre-existing lot, right? Because right now, if you say minimum lot area for development, it's not classifying either one of them.
That's true.
Whoa. Yeah, I guess.
Well, but you see, even in the current regulations, if somebody has a lot that's smaller than what's required in the current zone, and it was a lot of record prior to planning, they have the right to build on it if they can satisfy the health department.
But you still have to have your, I believe you have to have your side setbacks, side and back, you know,
Well,
not the frontage.
Yeah,
if you don't, you could go for a variance.
Right.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a minute.
You will
I
have to
don't
think
have
about
the
that.
zoning book in front of me, but I'm pretty sure that you still have to have the current setbacks. I believe it reads that. Does anybody have their zoning book and can read that?
Well, I can pull it. I can pull it up on the website. Hold on one second.
Well, I got my book.
Well, whoever said that, because I'm not looking at the video right now. So if whoever has it wants to read it, that'll save me the time of pulling it up off the website.
Alvin's gonna pull it out.
Although I think that possibly, Brian, were you trying to make a different case, which is that the minimum, are you concerned about people subdividing into smaller lot sizes here?
I guess what I'm concerned about is making the document clear, to Mike Krogel's point, that if someone with an existing lot reads this, that it doesn't pertain to them. They have an option. They're not a new lot. They're an existing lot.
Correct.
They probably already know that.
Yeah.
You'd be surprised if people don't know.
I don't know. You know,
I know what
Well,
you mean.
I hear what you're saying. So, but in, I believe, both the existing, but definitely in the proposed draft, the issues of existing nonconformities are directly addressed.
Yeah.
Let me find
Okay,
it here.
fine.
Yeah, I mean, I'll look at the new draft just because I can.
I'm looking at it
pull
right
it.
now, so.
All right, I have the book in front of me, Tyra.
Go for it, Alvin.
Yeah, general exceptions to dimensional requirements. Undersized lots of record. A single-family dwelling may be erected on any lot in a residential district, even though the lot may have less area or street frontage than a minimum normally required, provided such a lot shall have been recorded by deed or shall have been shown on a subdivision plan approved by the commission, recorded in the town clerk's office prior to the effective day of these regulations, February 3rd, 1969. B, all setbacks and height requirements are satisfied.
Current, does it say current setbacks or?
No,
It would
just says
have?
all.
Well, it
just
says
says
all setback and height requirements are satisfied.
Yeah, which means there were no setbacks or requirements prior to 1969, so it would be
Exactly.
the current ones.
No, we're requiring them to do the current setbacks.
So
Well,
just
if
to
they
back,
can, why not? If they
just
can,
to back
why
up
not?
what Alvin just read from the existing, in the proposed, I have the proposed page pulled up. Under non-conforming lots, 1, For the purpose of these regulations, a non-conforming lot shall be a lot which had a separate existence prior to the enactment of those zoning regulations or any amendment thereto, which requires a larger area, frontage, width, or depth than that which existed prior to such enactment. 2, in any district in which single-family dwellings are permitted, notwithstanding limitations imposed by other provisions of these regulations, single-family dwellings may be erected on any non-conforming lot which was in separate ownership as evidenced by a deed recorded in the land records or the town prior to the effective date of adoption of these regulations or any amendments thereto, which created such non-conforming lot, provided that construction on and use of each lot shall comply with all other provisions of these regulations. In other words, you get to use your lot, but yes, the dimensional requirements still stand. So that's to answer Cindy's question. 3, if 2 or more contiguous lots or combinations of lots or portions of lots in single ownership are of record at the time of passage of these regulations or any amendments thereto, and if all or part of such lots do not meet the requirements for lot frontage, width, or area as established by these regulations or any amendment thereto, the land involved shall be considered to be an undivided lot for the purposes of these regulations, except as provided below, and there's some exceptions there. No portion of said undivided lot shall be used or sold as a building lot which does not meet lot frontage, width, and area requirements established within these regulations, nor shall any division of a lot be made which leaves any remaining lot with frontage, width, or area below the requirements stated within these regulations.
Right.
So you can always improve, but you can't go backwards, and you can use what you have. That's the takeaway from that.
Thank you, Karen. Thank
Yeah,
you.
the general rule of going around that in terms of making one lot out of 2 because the same name is on them. Generally, developers and people who subdivide do not put the same name on lots adjourning lots. They change the name. It's, Mr. and Mrs. X, and the next lot is Mr. X, etc. So I think that you have room for people to change the ownership of adjacent lots. You can't combine them to different names.
Although it's not necessarily beneficial for them not to be combined if they can't convey or they can't divide into a smaller portion, but it goes back to the earlier, I guess, if you wanted to just sell it as a camper lot, and monetize that way.
Okay, so A1 is good. Okay. A2, I haven't, I think A2 seems to be generally sound. The maximum height of or any building or structure shall be 3 stories.
Yep.
Actually, Alvin had suggested going to 2 there for some specific reasons. I guess there's a sightline issue with with at least one of the lakes being a landing zone for planes.
Aquatic lake.
That's a good idea.
And since the lots are smaller, I think it might be reasonable to limit to 2 stories there.
Yeah, that's what I was going
Department
to.
of Health is going to.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Alvin.
Would require, even on a very small lot, if they allow 2 bedrooms, that'd be amazing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they're going to be limited by the NDDH. I mean,
Exactly.
and they've been building 3 stories over there all day long. So I don't think there's a height issue here with the 3 stories just because of the NDDH approval.
No, it has nothing to do, but I think 3 stories is too much. Should be 2. You get into all kinds of problems. This happens a lot with oceanfront. You can't go 3 stories. That's, to me, 2 stories is more than enough.
More than enough.
Because once you go to 3 stories, then you're going to have a lot of other issues. You're blocking this guy's view of the water, and we're taxing him for a water view as opposed to water frontage. So I think that should be changed to 2 stories.
Okay, sounds like a lot of voices to change to 2 stories. Anyone strongly in favor of keeping it at 3?
I totally am. What are the other districts? Didn't we say a height at 35 feet?
No, we changed it to 3 stories because stories can have variable heights. And when I asked the gentleman at Community Fire, actually mostly because I was thinking about the mill, but you know what the maximum height building they could handle would be, it said it was something around 90 feet. So in terms of people's choices and how high they want their ceilings, we left it at stories because you can count them from the ground.
I just feel like we're and maybe Cindy can support this. There's been people build, every house that I looked at has been 3 stories over there. The one that
Not on the water.
they're both on the water, Bob. They're both on the
Should
water.
be.
Well, obviously they're not blocking the view because I haven't had any complaints, but I agree with the 2-story because of the views.
We know whose background noise this is, so I can mute them.
I think it might be Charlene.
Is it? I'm in another.
I think there's like some feedback. I think it's like a delay of what we're saying.
Okay, so we're gonna change it to 2 stories, are we agreed on that?
Well, is it contentious enough to vote, or do we have enough consensus for 2? I mean, I only hear Brian strongly saying that it should be 3, but I would say, Brian, they're building 3 stories because we're letting them now. We're certainly not going to make anybody take the 3rd story off their house.
No, you can't.
But we could set a limitation going forward. And generally, I'm not in favor of random limitations, but I think
Yeah,
that
well,
there
that's
is
my
some.
point. You're going to allow one person and the person next to it has a 2-story limitation. I just don't feel like it's fair. It's not fair.
Well,
Charlie?
I have a comment.
I kind of think so too. Like if I'm coming to build my dream house, but I can't have dogs, I can't have a wife, I can't have 3 stories, I can't have. Why am I building?
Okay, so listen to this scenario. So you have a banking and you can have a walkout basement with sliding glass doors and the deck, but then the frontage is only 2 stories because there was a house like that at Little Pond that I wondered how it got there myself. But so would that be considered 3 stories? So you're going to do 3 stories above, 2 stories above the ground, but if they can dig down,
I don't think a basement is counted as a story ever.
Yeah, it's not
Well,
counted.
I agree, but you know, if it's finished and everything, and an appraiser might come in and say this is a 3-story house.
Not an appraiser who knew what a basement was.
I think NDDH should limit
the
amount of bathrooms. NDDH is going to limit. It's going to limit the amount of bathrooms, and it's going to control the size of the house. I mean, I feel that strongly, and I don't think it's fair to a degree.
Yeah.
And I don't think it's fair to have all this randomness.
I don't think we should have 3 stories in there, though. I think we
Okay,
should.
so I'm gonna call a vote on this then. We'll vote for 2 stories or 3 stories. Well, Mr. Linky, we're gonna start with you.
I'm going with 1 story.
That's not one of the options, John.
I know. I'm gonna have to go with 2 stories because all the years I know of Aquatic and everything, and all those houses were either 1 story or they used the cellar, like was just mentioned, made it a walkout, whatever. But none of them. I think 3 stories is a little too high. That's my personal opinion.
Mr. Linky votes 2 stories. Mr. Poplawski?
I'm going to vote 2 stories as well.
Mr. Word?
Is yours a 3-story house, Dave? I'm just curious.
Actually, it's a walkout basement with a ranch on top of it, so 1 story. Unless, by Cindy's definition, it may be 2.
Mr. Word?
I say 2 stories.
Mr. Word, 2 stories. Mr. Hill?
2 stories.
Mr. Hill, 2 stories. Ms. DeRogers?
I would say 2 stories as well.
2 stories. Mr. Santos?
3.
Mr. Krogel?
3.
Mr. Krogel, 3. Charlene?
3.
3. I will vote 2 stories. 2 stories it is a 6-3 vote in favor of 2 stories.
Okay.
Okay, lot coverage. Any concerns about 50% maximum impermeable surface?
So this is this doubling what it is currently in the common residential district. Is that correct? 25% on common residential, I believe.
No, 75% in common residential. Common
Yes.
residential is served by sewer and water.
Yeah, okay. Maybe I clearly read that back.
This makes it consistent with the rest of the rural residential agricultural where we've set a 50% maximum. So the underlying district is consistent.
I think that makes sense.
Okay.
Joe, on just the question,
Yeah.
there's a lot of easements, paved easements that go through a lot of these combined lots. So should we specify that it doesn't include the easement, or do we have to get into that depth?
That is an interesting question I had not considered, Dave. Alvin, Carolyn, do either of you have a perspective on that?
My question would be, what kind of easement? An easement for what?
Yes, all kinds.
Access easement.
Oh, right of way?
Yeah.
So do you mean by access, do you mean a private road, or do you mean you're actually driving through somebody's property to get to property that's landlocked?
Yeah, the easement entitles you to drive through that property to get to another
Okay, so
property.
it's like a private drive.
Yeah. Well, you have an easement to the private drive. You have the right to use it.
Yes, yes.
That's in the deeds, though.
That's right.
That's not, we don't have any control.
So,
over that.
Well, I'm just saying for the
Yeah.
for the surface.
for
Right.
counting the permeable area.
Oh,
So if it's a gravel right of way, or is it blacktop?
So, my opinion is that if you exclude, the easement or the right of ways, it'd make my job a lot easier.
Oh, that's a big clue.
I just looked at all those little small pieces that are probably landlocked and can see that coming up in the future.
yeah.
I think this actually may go to some of the questions that Marla had submitted right at the tail end of that conversation. For whatever it's worth, Rich Roberts is reading those for me tonight to see if he can solve some of the remaining conundrums over when and how we use terms like frontage and private ways. And now that might solve some of this problem, but it may not solve all of it. Which is why I was asking for Alvin and Carolyn's perspective on this.
Well, my perspective, if a right-of-way and an easement over a lot, it should be part of the percentage of impermeable surface. In other words, it would rule out completely an asphalt top.
That's common sense, though. I agree.
It would be best for it to remain permeable. Yes. Yeah. And then it can be.
So the lot is the lot regardless of the easement in terms of permeable surface.
Absolutely.
That's
Yes,
my
if you
opinion.
want to pave that right away, that's up to the owner of the lot, but that should be counted towards the percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said
Yes,
it
that's what it
shouldn't?
should.
Mike?
Should.
It should, okay.
Yes, because it's his lot. I mean, that's what the definition is going to, percentage of the lot.
So Dave, were you talking about the small lots on the east side of Little Pond?
Yeah, so I was. And the reason I'm saying this because a lot I have has, I think it's a 30-foot by 200-foot right-of-way easement for the house on the other side of my lot. The only way they can get through is through that 30 by 200-foot easement. So to build a house, I need to put a driveway. I can't block their 30 feet. Or I need to have parking, or I need to have something else. That's why, and I can see this being a case on a lot of the smaller lots as well, up on Schoolhouse.
Well, these all, yeah, on Schoolhouse Pond, these are all paper streets.
Yeah.
And they're gravel. Thank goodness.
You guys hear anything weird? My cat's crying. I'm just going to see what he's complaining about.
Okay, so it sounds like the consensus is that this includes the area of the easements as well. Good.
Right, but I guess the question is, does that need to be stated? I mean, we haven't stated anything like that anywhere else.
No sense in stating it.
Yeah.
Your thoughts there, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I mean,
He's wondering if we have anything else to discuss on this section.
Yes, I do have an item.
I mean, on
the E. You talking about the whole thing?
well, yeah, so yeah, and I think Brian has some frontage and setback conversations he wants to continue to have as well.
yes,
Oh,
frontage and setback requirement.
Yeah, so that's what
oh,
we're
okay. You want to wait for E?
yeah, why don't we wait for E?
Okay.
My comment, if I can, Joe,
Yeah.
is my comment is this: I don't think it should be a ratio aspect. I feel like it should just be a number or numbers.
So Brian,
yeah.
so is that again just because of the unique nature of this district?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because again, the argument for the way it's written would also be consistency with other.
I understand that completely. I feel like it just, we're limiting people with larger properties for, I don't believe, any real reason.
Well, think of it this way, Brian, because I think you could look at that question from either perspective. You're either permitting people with smaller, odd-sized lots to have more flexibility, or you could say that you're creating greater burden on the larger lot. However, in one of the more standard districts, that amount is set at, I think, 25 feet. Maybe might be 35, but 25 feet as your front. So in this district, you could actually be closer with a larger lot based on that ratio aspect. Up until you get to 35 feet, it's whichever one is less.
Yep.
So
Okay.
I can understand why you would say that it's more limiting to somebody with a larger lot, but a person with a larger lot already has more options.
Right.
So this is allowing the individual with the smaller lot to have something more equivalent to a flexibility of options.
I don't know. I agree with Brian. It just doesn't, it feels like you're encumbering a person with a larger lot. And I don't think that's right. So I agree with Brian on that.
Okay. Other thoughts from the commission?
Just for the record, I don't know what my numbers would be.
That was going to be my question, Brian.
I'd have to think about it some more. I just felt like there is a restriction.
Yeah,
here
I agree.
that should not exist. That was what I opened up with whatever the setback is for the water side.
I agree with you in the sense that we should have a setback, and it shouldn't be based on percentage. It should be a specific setback.
I agree.
10 feet or 12
Yeah,
feet. whatever you,
But if you're going to do
Leverage it.
that, you should set that setback based on the smallest possible lot, which would be 50 by 90 under new dimensions,
Exactly.
right?
That's what I would do. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, Tara.
Makes sense.
Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Don't forget, most people are going to want to be as close to the lake as they can be.
Absolutely. Okay.
Oh, I
get
don't know
all of
about that. I don't know about that. Up in Charlton on Glen Echo, it seems like all the houses are set back approximately 150 feet. They're probably only about 50 feet off the road.
I guess
So
my
everyone can see the whole pond instead of being right on the water, blocking
not-
other people's view.
I'm not disagreeing with either one of you. I just feel like we should at least provide that option to do that, right?
So
If you
let me
want-
say this. Let me say this. What about, and I'm making this up as I go along, so the wording may be awkward. Back to the idea of new versus existing non-conforming lots. Is it reasonable to include a dimensional, a set dimensional requirement for
New construction.
currently, for new construction or currently unbuilt lots based on the 50 by 90, but to make a provision for existing non-conforming lots that is the ratio? Existing non-conforming lots under 4,500 square feet.
Okay. Yep.
yeah, I'd go with that.
Yeah,
I'd
I
go
think
with
that
that.
Yeah,
I would go with that.
sounds good.
a good
I'll
call.
go with
Okay, I can write that. That's easy.
Yeah. Yeah, just so we're not encumbering someone with a bigger lot.
I would agree with
Fair.
that.
I don't hear any opposition. Okay. Okay, and then Bob, you, I think that brings us to E.
Yeah, E, I would probably ask for Cindy's input on that. But it looks to me the way it's worded, that it shouldn't be the ZEO, but the ZBA, because it's an exception to zoning.
No, it's for special needs.
So it's
Access.
still the exception.
Well, it won't
Right,
be
it's
exception-
carving out the exception without imposing the expense of going to ZBA for somebody who needs a handicapped ramp.
Yeah, I don't think they
How do
should
you,
have to go
how do
to
you feel
ZBA.
about that, Cindy? You okay with it?
No, I agree to give the CEO the leeway
Option.
to
Okay.
approve that, yeah.
Okay, just look at it,
That makes the most sense and it'll expedite things.
yes, at less expense to the applicant.
Yes.
Because let's be frank, there is no circumstance under which a ZBA should be able to deny a person their handicapped ramp. And if they did, that would be a lawsuit. So you're asking for the,
Probably.
you're asking for the expense of the property owner to go to ZBA,
Yeah, I
giving
agree, I
ZBA
agree.
the permission to turn something down, and then they're going to lose a court case anyway.
No, I gave up, I surrender.
Yes,
so
thank you, Kira.
That'd be a clear violation of federal law besides.
Yeah,
Yeah.
The
Oh,
only
there you go, Alvin.
other, I mean, I guess the only other, the item to comment on would be the uses. If anyone has any concerns or questions there.
the chart, you mean,
Yeah.
Yes.
looks good, I like
Yep.
it.
Good. All set.
The only thing I would interject on this is when it comes to agriculture, it says non-livestock only. In terms of agriculture and let's say the wetlands laws, agriculture is something as of right. They have the right to utilize wetlands even. So I don't know.
So
if-
you're suggesting that we strike non-livestock only, or you're suggesting that it can't be a special permit use? I mean, this is the only district in which we would consider such restrictions. Otherwise,
Yes.
I say if you can farm it, farm it.
Yeah,
Yes, well,
but don't-
I'm not, special permit is, it can be, burdensome to go through the whole special permit. Maybe just a zoning permit, with the review by the zoning official so that if there is anything, I mean, what would be the concern?
The concern is in the lake area, runoffs, and
Right.
specifically from manures or
Sure.
pesticides, I suppose. So we've made a statement that this is an area that we are concerned with because it is waterfront. So that's not just the aesthetic value, that is the health of the body of water,
Yes.
which would be the only reason I would propose any restrictions on agriculture, which we have gone out of our way to be friendly to in every other district.
Yes. So,
Um,
that which existed, which is existing now, does not need to come to zoning for anything, do they?
Does it exist? No, it exists.
Okay. But you have existing and it says special permit, so I'm not,
That format is based on conversion of buildings more than anything else.
okay.
It's probably not really, it's applicable to agriculture in the same way.
Right.
Yeah.
It's more of a strategy for adaptive reuse. And there were some places where it had been suggested maybe some things, if they were existing buildings, would have a different level review. We actually got away from that. But it is theoretically possible. But yeah.
Nobody's gonna have property on the lake and look to farm it
Well,
on a 50-foot frontage.
not necessarily, but.
Yeah.
But what about, are you thinking people who have horses? Do you consider that agriculture?
I believe the Department of Agriculture does. I think they're just big house dogs myself.
Yeah, but
I mean, unless they're pulling a plow, they're not contributing to agriculture.
okay, all right. I don't know. The special permit thing kind of bothers me a little bit to put them through all of that. But
If the commission prefers, I could bump that up to the zoning permit with site plan review by commission, which would still be an escalation of level of review compared to every other district.
and
I
I also just want to say I can't imagine anybody wanting to, really do any serious agriculture right around the lake.
That's what I
Within
said.
these
I said that.
boundaries.
Nobody's farming with a 50-foot hole.
Well, and this goes back to an earlier conversation of what we picture when we say the word agriculture is not always what agriculture will be. I mean, beekeeping is agriculture, and actually I would have no issue with beekeeping on the lake, right? It doesn't have an effluent, it doesn't, but
Not measurable.
chicken, yeah, right. But chicken farming, which you can theoretically do at a smallish scale, would have a potential for high nitrogen runoff. So,
that's a good point.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think I would be okay with the site plan review by, the zoning permit with site plan review by commission.
Yeah, I was on the fence about that one when I stuck it with the special permit. I was thinking about the hazards to the area more than anything else. I can bump that up, no problem.
Okay, thank you. That was
Excellent.
mostly my concern.
We're done.
Yeah,
we're done with, I think. We just need to set some meeting dates. How do you like them apples?
Love them.
I'm gonna go get my my calendar.
Okay, so so Tira had suggested, that we have a question and answer session with interested members of the public sometime next week. I don't think that's something that everyone needs to attend.
And just for how I envision that unfolding, guys, I would set that for a finite period of time, an hour or an hour and a half, starting at X time, 6 or 7, because unlike a meeting where there's a specific agenda where you're discussing points in order, where somebody might you know, if there are people who have questions, they're going to come in, maybe they'll stay, maybe they'll ask their questions and go. But it's a different set of parameters. It's not an agenda. It's not a formal meeting in the same way, although we'll treat it that way in some regards in terms of we'll notice it and make people aware of it. But it is intended to be a conversational evening.
Pardon my, this being a somewhat unique case. Do we need a quorum of commission members to hold it?
That's where I was going.
I don't think so, because it's not really a meeting.
Well,
Nothing will be voted on, nothing will be decided. It's just,
yeah,
we're here to answer some questions for you.
That was
yeah, but
my
we-
idea.
we-
Public forum.
we are a subcommittee here, right? We're not the commission. I don't
Correct.
exactly know the wording of the bylaws specifically, but I suggest that we need a 10-member meeting or 10 members involved. We can't, as a subcommittee, we've decided a lot of things as a subcommittee. We've agreed on a lot of things, but it should go to the full 10-member committee.
Well, it does at the end.
It will at the end. This is a different
Okay,
aspect.
it will at the end.
This is not to vote on it.
Okay, now, when we do that, are we going to present issues that were a 2-to-1 vote or a 4-to-5 vote, or are we just going to present it to them without any comment?
No, so
Well,
what-
go ahead, Joe.
go ahead. I was gonna say what. So what will happen after this forum is we'll schedule a public hearing, likely for 2 weeks from now, and at the public hearing, the members of the commission and the public will receive the final draft, and that's what they will see. The final draft as written. We'll open the public hearing. Members of the public can share their input. We'll hold the public hearing open until our regular meeting, close the public hearing at that time, discuss it and act on it as we would any public hearing.
So you're saying you don't need 10 members,
We need a quorum of the commission.
just a quorum?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I
I think we should check on that in terms of the legality of it. Subcommittees generally, to my knowledge, don't make a
No,
decision.
he was talking about the regular meeting. We'll move to a regular meeting.
Yeah, but you have to have 10 members, all right?
No, we just have to have
You
a
have to have a quorum.
A quorum constitutes a legal meeting for any decision. If we had to have 10 members to make decisions, we
No,
no
I'm
one would
talking
get a
about
zoning
decision
permit
of
in this
magnitude.
town.
No, I'm talking about a decision of this magnitude. We are changing the zoning regulations for the town of Thompson.
And if
Don't
commissioners
see a
are that invested, they'll be at that meeting. This has been a multi-year process. This isn't a surprise to anyone.
But Bob, for whatever it's worth, I don't think you're in danger of not having 10 members. I mean, we have had some of these discussion groups where we've had 6 or 7 or 8, but again, as you point out, it is a decision of some magnitude that the members of this commission and the alternates have been very invested in, and we are aware of what the end game date is.
Mhm.
So I would say that it is unlikely that you will not have a full member. In fact, some of the alternates who have put a great deal of effort into this are likely to be unable to vote in the end piece if everybody shows up. I don't think that you're going to be in a position where you're going to have 6 people voting on this book.
Right. I think you have to comply with
Yeah.
your regulations and the state statutes on how to conduct this.
Almost a half of this quorum are alternates.
Yeah.
Hey, Mr.
Well,
Word,
They're sitting members when,
No, I know that, but you only have 10 members vote. So when we have a general meeting or the meeting after the public hearing, and we're doing that, there are 3 alternates here that could be excluded, and they had a lot of input.
That's correct.
Well, 3 of them, Brian, Alvin, and
that's right.
So now they're going to be bounced out of it.
Not necessarily.
if the other members show up.
Well, one or more of them may be if it is a full boat, but that is a part of the life of an alternate, and I don't think there's anybody here who doesn't understand that. I mean, that's why you have alternate. I mean, there's no instance in which all 13 of you are going to vote.
No, 10.
And we can't demand that somebody who is a commissioner not show up to vote. Although I can think of some that I might make the suggestion to.
The night of the meeting, we put something in their food.
Come on.
The word.
No.
Well, Brian and Alvin, those two guys have showed up at every meeting on this online thing.
That's good. Dedicated.
Go ahead, Carolyn.
Can I just ask, was everybody comfortable with where the boundaries were drawn for the two maps?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Carolyn. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah. We tried to limit it to what was essential to control the uses around the lake.
I mean, the boundaries looks good to me.
Okay.
Certainly, if anyone has any objections, we'll hear them.
Okay.
I would like to know how many acres we're talking about in each district. How many square miles or acres? Be nice to know.
Do you have any sense of that, Carolyn?
And no, I would, but I can do that. You know, I can make that calculation. I could work on that tomorrow.
Okay.
So that would include the lakes.
Yes.
The whole polygon around there. Yeah, I'll let you know. I'll do that tomorrow.
Yeah, I believe it'd give it perspective to people who live in town. We know what the Lake District is because we have it in front of us. But if it was somewhere published that we knew how many acres we're talking about in each district, would help.
Thank you, Evan.
Thank
Charlene?
you. It didn't cross my mind.
Yeah, I just wanted to say off of what Mr. Word was saying, like, there should be no issue when it goes after the public hearing, when the commissioners look at the work that we put into this. While we all didn't get what we want, we all have what we made. And so I can't imagine the people that are getting the chance to vote would vote something down if, one, they didn't take the time to sit for 2.5 years and do this, or for every week for a month, 2 hours at a time. So I would just hope that they would take that into consideration, that they might not be happy with everything. It is a big change, but it's a change for the better of Thompson. And so I just hope that if they feel like they can't vote because it would be a no vote because they don't like it, then at that point, let the alternate sit in. don't show up.
Yeah, we got to put something in their food.
I'll take care of that.
So,
Well, that's right in the restaurant.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Lanky.
this is for Mr. Words. The last time we had 13 members at a meeting, if I remember correctly, was in my second year when I first got on the P&Z, when we had everybody that was there on a certain night for a certain meeting. I remember it. It was 13 of us.
Thank you, Mr. Lanky. So, Tira, do you want to, I mean, is there a night we should be able to other town
for
meetings?
next week, it's got to be either the Monday the 13th or Tuesday the 14th, based on conflicts that I have, and obviously I have to be available to answer quite a, the bulk of these questions. I mean, if we do it next Tuesday, it's exactly 1 week from tonight. I think there's some symmetry to that is favorable.
Just so you know, I'm away Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. So I'm not around. So
Okay.
just letting you know.
I would have loved to have had you there, Brian, for some of the construction questions, but we'll sally forth.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, either of those nights works for me.
Either
Can we
of those
set it-
nights work for me.
Okay, so can we set it for Tuesday, the 14th, to make it exactly 1 week from this? Because that'll give me the chance tomorrow to add this district into the draft, post the draft with the highlighted changes from the discussion groups. So that's a week out. Does that work?
Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes.
Works for me.
We say 7 to
So we can
8:30.
schedule it 7 to 8:30 on Tuesday, the 14th.
Good. Sounds good.
Okay.
I make a motion, we adjourn?
Not yet.
Wait a minute, one more set, because you also have to set the date for the public
public
hearing the
hearing.
week after that, because you need 2-week notice on that, right? So Cindy, what's the statutory requirement? How many days from notice?
I think it's 10 and 5. But I'd have to check the. Gloria, do you know?
For other public hearings, it was 10 and 5.
Yeah, that's it.
10 days for what? For,
First notice.
First notice and then 5 days a second notice.
so we need a total of 15 days.
Right.
That's, and those days start tomorrow, correct?
Yeah.
What do you
And they
mean
do
those-
not include
Oh,
the days that you count. And they do not include weekend days. So 1, 2, 3,
Put us into August.
4, 5, 6, 7. No, it doesn't. 8, 9, 10, 11, 12,
I think it brings
13.
us to the 28th.
It does put you to the 28th. That's unfortunate, but we can do it. So it just pushes our schedule back a little bit. But so you're not going to get to do it at a regular meeting. It's going to be a series of special meetings entirely. But Tuesday the 28th is the first one. You guys good with that?
Are you sure about the weekends, Tira?
No.
What kind of notice is required? Is it published notice?
yes.
Published in a newspaper?
Or on the website.
Both.
But does the website, will that conform to statutory requirements?
I don't think so.
I don't believe it does.
I don't think, it
Yeah, put
might
in
right
newspaper.
now because of COVID.
So that happened with us. Remember, there was a problem because it wasn't put into the newspaper, and you have to put it on the website, but you have to put it separate. It's not like on the agenda. It wasn't enough just to be added to the agenda. It had to be like a special announcement, I think, because that was an issue with us. One of the meetings we got tabled because of that. And
Okay, so if the days include weekend, or if the days include Saturdays, but not Sundays, then you could open the public hearing at the regular meeting on the 27th. If it includes both Saturdays and Sundays, if it's just calendar days, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8.
Why
9,
would you
10,
do
11,
why would
12.
you do it at this regular meeting? You have so much business at a regular meeting. I mean, we're going to have business on the 27th. We already have one public hearing and one application so far. Public hearing is not going to be pretty.
Tira?
14th. If
I mean,
it counts
excuse me,
both
the
Saturdays
application-
and Sundays, if it counts both Saturdays and Sundays, you could hold it on the 22nd of July.
Yeah, so the statute says notice of the hearing shall be published at least twice at intervals of not less than 2 days, the first not more than 15 days or less than 10 days, and the last not less than 2 days before the date set. It says nothing about excluding weekends or...
Right.
So Wednesday, the 22nd, it would be that
Sundays have
date.
never counted as a day of notice.
So that means the final note has to be in on the 20th.
So we doing the 22nd?
If we can confirm that that is the correct date, and it seems like it is, then
When
I
are
would
you
say,
having when are you having the question and answer deal? What date?
The 14th.
Tuesday, the 14th.
And then you're going to go the following week and you're going to have the public hearing. I just don't think
Sure.
that's enough time. I think you're rushing this.
I think
Well,
the
what is it?
more-
What is it that you think we need more time for, Cindy?
When the people come in with their questions and to discuss those questions and see if there needs to be any changes. I mean, you're only giving yourself a week. I just don't get it. I don't get why you're rushing it for the
I
public.
don't think she's rushing it. We just sat a month. It was open for a month. What other questions could they
Because
have?
because now you have made additional changes. So you're publishing the additional changes on Facebook, so people are going to be looking at it. So you're going to be meeting on the question and answer next week. And then the following week, you're going to have a public hearing. If I was a member of the public, I'm sorry, I'm playing the devil's advocate here. I'm sorry. If I was a member of the public, I would be furious. So
If you were a member of the public, would you have just sat for 2.5 years every night with us if you were really that concerned about
that's not fair. You know, this stuff comes, people start paying attention to it, and they start saying what's going on here. This is not a 10-page document. This is 30 pages.
So
maybe Tara and maybe a few members of the commission and myself, we can go through that and we know what we're going through. The average citizen's going through 100 and something pages is not going to get it right away.
All right, so what we just did, we're bringing this to the public. Now you're saying there's a possibility with the changes that we just made, they could come back with, do you have any more questions that is everything all right that we just changed? Or are you gonna come back and have some more next week? Or, you know what I'm saying?
Probably after the question and answer period, sure. Absolutely.
This could go on forever. It could go on forever.
You're right.
Yeah,
you get it right.
I agree.
I mean,
with Cindy. Why not give it time? You know, give it another week or 10 days. I mean, what's the rush? We've been doing this for a long time. What's another few days?
I'll be gone when you guys decide what's happening. Just let me know.
No, you're subjecting yourself to a lot of public criticism as a commission.
Like a
What I would respond to how I would respond to that criticism is to point out the numbers of ways we have asked members of the public to share with us their insights throughout this entire process, which has been happening throughout the entire process, not just through the month of May, that we have that entire time for them to make their comments and questions, which has informed the work that we have been doing. That the question and answer session is an additional evening of transparent conversation that we're having with them that is certainly not in any requirement of us.
Well, it certainly is polite. So to what you just said, Joe, when you put the review on there the first time, it had 30 days for the public to comment. So now we have made a lot of changes. You as a group have made changes in that review. So now you're going to put the changed review, 100 and something pages, online, and you're going to give people 1 week to review it.
But I mean, so all of those changes were made specifically to questions that were brought about from the 30-day review, the May review, right? So,
not necessarily. You've added
The vast bulk of them certainly were.
The vast majority.
You have to give your public who this is going to affect, you're going to have to give them time to absorb the final document. That's my opinion, my feeling on it. And I don't think, and if you don't do that, I think you're going to have a lot of feedback on it, negative feedback. So
I also think that by opening the public hearing, holding it open throughout the entire week allows people to continue to send thoughts to us during that time. And that was an intentional choice that we made.
And so what are you going to do with those thoughts when they send them to you? You're going to come in and you're going to vote on it? And what are you going to do with those thoughts?
You're going to read them into the record. After they're read into the record, so you've got the the public hearing that gets opened where people can dial in just like they have done, are doing here, you know, in that orderly fashion, put their name and address, make their comments, they become a part of the recorded record, then we decided to hold it open for written comments to be received. Those written comments will be read into the record before the public hearing is closed. These are extra things that we have done. Now, I understand your point about people, you know, coming in, having the habit of coming in at the last minute, but that is a piece of human nature that we cannot, there's nothing that we're going to do that's going to change people's tendency to come in under the wire and panic. That
Okay.
some people do it, some people don't, and that's always going to be a factor.
Okay, so my next question is when you take all those comments and put them together, how much time are you going to be spending after you close the public hearing? How much time are you going to be spending on looking at those comments and seeing if they're valid, if there's a thought that we didn't have and then someone else came up? How much time are we spending on that?
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't we do the public hearing and see what kind of feedback we get?
Okay.
And
Good,
then
Bob.
set the date, the next date based on that.
Right, we don't have to take any action on the public hearing once it's closed, right? We
That's
can,
65 days, right?
right. So we
All right.
Let's
Okay.
play it
and I would also,
But
I would
once you
also-
close the public hearing, the public cannot have any more comments.
I understand
That is
that, but I'm
correct.
saying we
All
can
right.
discuss and
Okay.
take time to act on it.
Okay.
I would also point out that there are members of this commission who didn't think that the question and answer session that we're holding next week was necessary, right? So we're already, right?
Right.
So
I
there's,
think we should
there's
play
a
this
middle ground of being open to the public, which I certainly advocate for. I really do. And between getting this done, this is something that we've been saying 2.5 years. It's been 2.5 years in earnest. I got a rewrite of drafts, I think, in my first year on this commission, which was 8 years ago. It's
What's the rush, Joe?
Just,
What's the freaking rush? You're here 8 years. Can you wait 8 years in another week?
Hey,
just keep in mind that,
I think we should just wait and see what kind of
yeah, I
feedback
like that.
we
I
get
like
from the
that.
public
Okay,
hearing.
and
then go
again-
from there.
and again, when we're discussing the public hearing, we have that option to take that time.
Okay.
Right? We don't have to make a decision the night of the public hearing.
Of course
Just
not.
keep in
Yeah.
mind that people have moved into this community and they have financially invested in their property. So, you know.
I understand that
Okay.
completely.
All right. That's it. I'm done.
Okay, Gloria, you're clear on what we're doing next week, right?
Yeah.
Have
No.
July 14th at 7 to 8:30 for the
Very
Q&A
good.
subcommittee meeting on revised regs. Have we set a date for the public hearing?
The 22nd, as long as we can confirm that that is the correct date, which if it's calendar days, that should be correct.
Okay. I gotta do 9.
I have a time.
What's that?
Good night, Bob.
Good night.
What time will the public hearing start?
2 o'clock.
That is an excellent question. You guys want to start it early at 6
Yeah.
to
Sure.
anticipate the possibility of copious comments?
Yeah. 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, Gloria.
Thank you.
Oh, I was gonna let Bob make the next motion. Okay, so with those two meetings scheduled, and Tira, will you reach out with your thoughts on the format for next week?
Yeah, I still want to know who wants to be a part of that with me. I mean, I could tell you who my dream team on this would be you, me, Cindy, Carolyn, Alvin. I wanted Santos, of course, but he's not available. So either John Lenke or Dave for more construction-oriented questions, because I would be out of my wheelhouse on those. or both of you. But I will take anybody who wants to be a part of it.
I'll probably just hang in just to hear the questions.
I agree. I do the same.
Excellent.
You know, and it's not impossible that we're going to just be sitting there chatting amongst ourselves on a Zoom social call if nobody dials in,
Yeah.
which would also be okay.
Excellent.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, I do have one question.
Okay, Mr. Krogel, and then I think Carolyn's got a question or comment too.
Okay. I have been in correspondence with Tara on this. I just want to bring it out to.
Whoops.
Oh, you might need to cut your video again. We lost you.
Now, one issue with my wife is, should we not have some kind of sign off sheet between all committees to know what's happening with the renewal process of the applicants, to make sure that they are in compliance, or compliance with all town requirements?
Okay, yeah, so I get your point.
Yeah, did I fade in and out?
Yeah, a little
bit, but
we got you. The idea is that commissions that are granting permits or whatever, committees that are doing that sort of thing, should be in communication with other commissions and boards.
With each other, yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Because
guess that gets to.
I believe the one on Route 12 is illegally, and if we let it go.
Yeah,
There's something to be discussed.
Yeah, definitely. I think that gets into authority perhaps a little bit, and we may have various. Hey, sorry.
So I do have a partial answer to this question, because I did run that by Rich Roberts, and either Carolyn or Marla was copied in on that conversation. I think I can't remember who exactly. In terms of the question that came up over arrears in taxes and fees, that is outside the commission's jurisdiction, but the building office does have the ability to withhold a building permit. It does seem to me reasonable that interdepartmental departments within the town that had a piece of the original special permit, and this really only applies to gravel operations, right? Nothing else comes up for renewals. That, if your department had a piece of that sign off in the beginning, then when the renewal process comes up to verify that that is still in compliance does seem like a reasonable standard and is within the authority of the commission to include as a provision of a renewal. But the taxation thing is not.
Meanwhile, somebody is now against violating everything in town.
And it's up to that department. It's up to that department to pursue it.
I understand, yeah. And we will, I'm just saying, but wouldn't it make it easier for the town to know if the people are in compliance with regulations pertaining to the town?
But only in as much as that can influence or change our decision, right? I mean,
I understand. I mean, I know it's a issue and it gets into regulations and taxes and everything else. I just think that if the companies are not ethical to do everything they're supposed to, I have an issue with that.
Yeah.
So let me ask a question of Cindy on this issue. Cindy, if a renewal comes to you and you go out and you take a look at the site and you see something that looks like it may be hinky from a wetlands perspective, because that's the one that's most likely going to be coming up.
Well,
you let Marla know, or you wait until somebody complains?
No, I let Marla know that it's up for renewal. That's like standard procedure. If I went out there and I saw something that was in danger of creating a fire, or some destruction, then I would call the fire department. If there was a building there and the building wasn't probably in compliance or something, I would call the building department.
So in other words, the ZEO, you, goes out as a part of the renewal process. You are aware of the conditions of the original conditions of the special permit. You are
Right.
determining whether or not it's in compliance from a zoning perspective.
Right.
And if, in your opinion, it is not in compliance with some other piece that is outside your specific jurisdiction, you are, in fact, informing that other town
Well,
agent, officer.
If it could create a disaster, yes, that's I would say that's my responsibility. If it's going to create a disaster, it's just like when the building office goes out on a complaint and there's something to do with zoning, he informs me. So
Right, but if it's something that doesn't rise to the level of an imminent disaster, if it's something that just you, in your experience, view and say, you know what, this is out of my area, but there was a wetlands or a building or a fire marshal sign off, I am just going to call this to my attention. That is a part of your function in a renewal, I would assume, is to observe the status of the operation, confirm whether or not it's compliant with the zoning aspect, and inform with the intent that they also pursue any possible nonconformities with the other departments.
Right. Yes.
So we could include the provision. It doesn't fundamentally change what you do. It just states that that is something that people who are renewing should expect is happening.
Mhm.
Alvin, what do you think of that? You were there. You lived this life. What do you think? I mean, if you went out on a job and you saw something that was going to create a disaster or create, issues for the fire department or the building department, would you mention it to them?
Well, of course.
Yeah. Okay. So, all right. So,
Common sense.
right. That's the word. I'm
So
looking
I guess the question that Mike is asking, and so I'm rephrasing it on his behalf, is, although I think we all agree that it is common sense, does it need to be explicitly stated within the body of regulations for renewals, which only exist in gravel permits, that it is to be expected that the ZEO is reviewing for compliance with zoning regulations, but will also call out to the appropriate departments or agencies any possible non-compliance with the conditions of the permit? Does that need to be explicitly stated, or does the common sense aspect of it cover it?
Well, how is this person, Mike, this was the one that just renewed his permit and there were back taxes that were owed on it?
It's an illegal hookup to the source system that they never applied for.
Okay, so how would Cindy have known that or how would we have known that when they came in to renew? How was that brought to our attention?
I don't think she would have known.
No, I knew about it when when the new company took over, that they were hooking into they were working with Paul LaRoche to use the sanitation facilities. But how he was going to do it, as long as it was done, so I wouldn't have to call the health department because there was a obnoxious odor, which I would do if they had a Porta Johns, and I went over there and to check the property, and the Porta Johns had a obnoxious odor, then I would call the health department or I would say, get that empty, or so. But I knew they were hooking up. I mean, I was aware of that. But as far as the details of it, I don't know if that's something that we need to get into. That's up to the water department to figure out how he's supposed to do it in coordination with Paul LaRoche, because it's Paul's property.
Well, my point is that if you question and expect answers from wetlands or conservation or anywhere else, why not contact the sewer department also?
Well, I
if
think
they
we
are
did. We had a
hooking up to a town
conversation
line.
with them. We had a conversation with them when they had their permit and they hooked up with Paul. I believe there was conversations with them concerning that.
Cindy, clarify
Okay,
this
well,
for me,
it's
Cindy.
irrelevant.
Is the sewer issue more an issue of the building department?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah. I mean, the only
And
way
the
I get
building
into it,
department does have the ability to withhold a certificate of occupancy or
right.
Okay,
in the
well, I
face
think
of
I'm-
both back taxes and incorrect action.
Yeah, so you have to check to see if when they built that building, if they got a building permit for it. And of course, I would have to check to see if I signed off on it. So that's one way of us knowing what's going on. Sure.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
when they were putting in that office trailer, with the scale in it, they put the scale in, then they put the office trailer in, and that's when they were using the porta-john. Well, they were using the porta-john or system similar to it where it was getting pumped out. You have to have a permit to put that office trailer in, even though it was a temporary structure or building, for what the purpose it was going to be used for. So you had to get a permit for that.
Yeah, I'm sure he did. Yeah.
So then along the way, somebody should have went, and I'm not saying it's your job, but it should have been mentioned to the proper entity that there's a possibility that they could be probably wanting to hook up into the town sewer.
Right.
And they ended up doing. You didn't know, but it was done kind of maybe underhanded, and it was put in, and they said they didn't know anything about it, and it was done. So, it's a
And
fine
that's
line.
all, and that is all water under the bridge, or a flush down the toilet, whatever you want to call it. But when it comes down to the actual renewal of the permit, and it's not just that site. I mean, that's probably going to be the only one that ever happens. But I think the town or whoever is issuing renewals should find out if they are in compliance with everything else in town. And if they're not, I consider these companies to be shady, and that they're not worth it, that they should not be operating until they have all the proper permits.
Okay.
So this is, I think, where you run into trouble with the way the way you just phrased it, Mike. Is that the statement that they are doing whatever they should be doing with the town? To say it that way is too broad and oversteps too many people's authority.
Okay,
but I think you do have, authority, the commission meaning, has authority to state in their regulations if a department, zoning, building, wetlands, fire marshal, whatever, signed off on the original application, then we could require that they essentially confirm that they are still in compliance. So in other words, nothing to do with taxes, nothing to do with fees, nothing to do with departments that are outside of the original permit process. But as a part of the original permit process, I think that you do have the latitude to state a requirement in renewals, which sets the expectation for the operator as well as for the commission and town staff, that if it was signed off once, it's going to have to demonstrate its compliance in the renewal period.
Well, and I just bring this up for conversation so that we can get something proper. I mean, I know it's now at the end of the wire here, but and again, it may be the only time this ever happens. But I think if people are not in compliance, then they should not get a renewal. Just
So in the case of hooking up to an established system, which is the town sewer and water, and if if everything, Paul's in conversation with Paul and conversations with John, yep, everything's hooked up, everything's fine. That's a stabilized system. it's not Porta-John, so am I supposed to was I supposed to ask every year, are you still okay with the water and sewer department? I mean, I don't get that. I mean, because it's stationary. So
I don't know. I mean, we've never come across this, but
Yeah,
yeah,
okay.
probably should have. I mean, you go to everyone else to make sure they sign off, that the original signees.
Yeah,
Okay, and if you're on a sewer line, I guess you should go to the sewer department to see if they have signed off also. Because I would think we're an established body, and if you're on a sewer line, chances are somewhere down the line, you're probably going to hook up. And if you say we're going to use a porta potty or a tank of some kind, a holding tank, I think at renewal time, it should still be asked, are you on the tank? And if not, there should be repercussions.
I mean, that issue isn't even in our zoning regs. What are they doing for sanitation facilities when they're on the property? That's not even in our zoning regs
Yeah.
now.
That's building. Right?
Well, yeah, but the building department wouldn't go out to a gravel operation because there's no buildings there.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I mean, I don't see any issue with putting that language in.
Yeah, maybe all departments should just sign off, and if anything comes up the next time around, they have some grounds to hold people to the fire.
Yeah, I think the way you read that language, Tira, made sense. Carolyn, I know you had something you wanted to.
Yeah, I wanted to ask, and I may have missed, you guys may have mentioned this before when you were talking about the question and answer forum. When will the final draft be ready for us to look at?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Right, Tira? Yeah.
Tomorrow? And Tira, will you be able to send it out to us or a link or something?
I will have both of those things.
Perfect.
I will send it to you. I will upload it to the website as it's been uploaded before. So that'll be a link that can be opened. And then there will again be a little delay on the map because I need Jim Larkin to make those changes for me.
Yes.
I hate having to have these delays on the map and rely on somebody outside of our, inner circle, but that's okay.
Yeah.
I bet you he'll produce that before the end of the week.
I hope so. Yeah, I'm sorry I'm not up to speed on that yet, but I'm working towards it, so.
I think you do yeoman's work, Carolyn, so I'm not complaining about anything that you do or have done.
Thank you.
Speaking of yeoman's
I would
work,
never.
Before I accept a final motion, I want to thank Mr. Santos for chairing in my absence last week. I heard nothing but rave reviews.
Did a good job.
First and last time. First and last time, though.
And with that, I will move to item 5 on the agenda and accept any motions as long as it's a specific motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion has been made to
second.
adjourn by
second.
Mr. Santos, seconded by Ms. Langlois. Meeting is adjourned at 9:02 p.m. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Good night to all.
Good night,
Good
everybody.
night. Good night.
Good night.